Welcome to another lesson about building Excel and Visual Basic for application modeling for supply chain planning and financial analysis. The intent is to build more powerful spreadsheets and automate those spreadsheets using VBA. The advanced techniques we will go over is how to use combinations of formulas in order to do the analysis that you want, and also automate your spreadsheets using the VBA so that we can minimize the time of data collection and reformatting and maximize the time that you analyze your information and get exactly the answers that you want. Let's get started. This presentation is about finding specific information within a data set. Very often supply chain planners and financial analysts are going to be looking through very large data sets in order to find only limited specific information. So being as good as you can in that skill of looking through that data and being able to find just what you want is a very valuable thing to understand. You may be used to using commands that are formulas like VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. I illustrate a little bit that you have a data set or a table down below, and you can see that we're using a VLOOKUP command here, which is going down this column to find which product that you are interested in. But then you have to define how many columns across that you're going to look at the data if you find that particular product. HLOOKUP is very similar. Let's just say you're looking for the current week and you have a bunch of weeks set up along the column headers here. You're going to look across horizontally until you find the week that you want, and then you're going to look down 4 rows in order to find that particular data. Index is another formula command that you can use. There you have to define the exact row number and column number. That's going to be like a cross-reference of a table. Let's just say you want to go down 5 rows and over 4 rows. This would be the number that you would yield from that formula. In all 3 of these cases, you have to have a pretty good idea about what the data set looks like so that you can count over the number of rows or columns that you have to search. Pivot tables are another variation of that, where you can actually set up criteria and then you can exclude out certain variables that are within that criteria in order to have a subset of information. Filtering is very similar, and it also only works on a vertical axis when you're trying to filter out different kinds of information. Let's say you're looking through a personnel file and you want to find everybody that lives in New Jersey and that has the name Smith. So you might arrive with 5 people who happen to live in New Jersey and have that same name. So these would be some examples of how you would actually use formulas or set up pivot tables and filtering in order to be able to find the information that you want. What we want to do is more complex. I'm going to help you understand how to build up a formula to find very specific information, but with more than just 2 parameters in order to be able to find even more specific information. And then we're going to go on from there in order to be able to add up that information and be able to come up with summations of an array. So this should be some concepts that you're going to need to understand in order to be able to utilize this technique. So on this slide we're going to describe what Boolean logic is, what conditional logic is, and then how we can actually nest logic with mathematics in order to be able to come up with some very creative solutions here for searching data sets. So let's start off with Boolean logic. Boolean logic basically is ones and zeros. You do a test, and if the test is true, it's going to yield a true, or mathematically it will be equal to a 1. True and 1 is interchangeable. If a test is false, then the respective yield on that is going to be a 0 in mathematical terms. This is very comparable to having two logical tests, and you're going to have an AND operator between the two tests in Boolean logic. And both, in that particular case, in order for the formula to be true, both conditions have to be true on both sides of the AND. But if we turn this into a mathematical formula, then what we're really essentially doing is if I multiply 1 times 1, the result is going to be a 1, or still true. I can multiply as many ones as I want to string together, and a true statement is always going to be when all of those tests are true. But I can keep multiplying one after the other, and it's going to give me the same result. In the case of a test that fails, it doesn't matter what position of the test fail. I can have 3 different conditions. The first condition could fail, the second or the third, or 2 or more conditions can fail, and the result will always be false. But here again, in mathematical terms, that would be like multiplying 1 times 0 times 1 times 1, and that result is false. And here again, I can change the position of that false, and it doesn't change the result. I can have more than 1 0 in there, but as long as I have 1 0 and I'm multiplying all these together, the result is always 0, therefore it's always false. The second concept that you should understand is a conditional logic. Many of you might have used an if statement if you've done any programming at all. So we're saying if we have a test here, x is less than y, then if that is true, it's going to yield a 1. If it's false, or in this particular example, we say that x is equal to y, that's false. Or if x is greater than y, it's still false. This will yield a true if the test is a positive result, and false if it's a negative result. Here again, the 1 is interchangeable with true, and false is always equivalent to a 0. Now what I want you to understand is that I can nest these things together. I'm essentially saying I can replace any one of these positions or any one of these tests with conditional logic. And I could plug that into every one of these positions, and that will be the same as what we did earlier. So nesting is when I put my logical test within a mathematical formula. This could also be done in reverse, where a mathematical formula can also be done within a logical test. Okay, let's get to the meat of the matter now. What we want to be able to do is have an unlimited number of tests that we can put into an equation and still find the specific information that we're looking for. In addition to that, we want to sum up all the numbers that have the same criteria. So in order to be able to do that, we're going to use an array, and that's what these braces are at the beginning and end of this formula. And then let's start from the inside out here. We have labels for ranges of data within the data set. It doesn't matter if it's this table or this table over here. But let's just say selected product could have been all this column of products, or it could have been this column of products. And you would do this within Excel by giving it a range name. And then we have some other labels in here that we've defined the ranges to, and that's this product reference here. We have CW for a variable that we've defined for current week, and then we have a week reference That could have been this column of data here or this column of data there, or it could have been a horizontal set of values. And then we can even reuse a label over again. So in this case, the current week, it's going to search through these and find which week is now. And we only want those that are greater than, let's say, January 1st of 2017. So now I can have multiple tests. Again, if either one of these tests fail, then the result is 0. But if all these are true, what's going to happen here, now these are the quantities, and that would be either one of these values here within this table, or it would be these values within this table. So if I had defined this label as being this range here, I would look at the criteria here. If all three of these criteria are true, then it's going to return this value. Now, if I'm summing this, if I find two that are exactly and meet all the criteria, it's going to actually add those two together. And what's going to happen with the array setup like I have here, it's going to assign a value for that particular cell that this formula is in that meet all of the criteria, and it's going to give me the result of multiple values. So let's just say it happened to be this rice mix here, and I was looking for week 3. You can see that I want to look at all the customer orders here that were for seafood rice, but were only in week 3. So I would add up all 4 of these numbers, and that would be the number that would be returned in the cell. Here again, this was just a conceptual understanding. You're going to have to translate this into your needs. If you have any questions, you can always feel free to contact us. This lesson was presented by Supply Chain Systems of Miami, Florida. Please contact us if we can assist you in building your own models, or if you would like us to build models for you. Have a great day, and see you at the next lesson.